in game, and there is our worm mama in the flesh or goo or mama, whatever you want to say there.
Like
yeah.
Move over around.
And I'm gonna let our designers take this away. They're gonna go through what she does, and she's gonna do the things.
Oh man,
Adonis, start us off.
Of course. Really excited for everyone here at the Hi-Res Showcase to see Yagorath. This is something that the team has really rallied behind. We were so excited to work on this champion. This is the largest champion that we've ever done in game, and we had a couple goals for development during Yagorath. One is to create a completely new experience, not just in, hey, we're introducing a new gameplay hook or mechanic, which she has a few of those, but for players to be able to engage in Paladins and play a champion in a way that traditionally they don't play champions in our game. So for her, we were really excited to bring such a large champion and also a really, really fun 1P experience. Being inside the jaws of Yagorath, I think, is probably the most excited I've been for any new champion in quite some time.
I think it really lends itself to kind of that feeling of being this predator, this large monster. But I can go ahead and just start us off right into the kit if we're interested. Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So Yagorath has a passive. She has base damage reduction and is immune to most forms of crowd control. Instead, she will have a portion of the crowd control duration converted to a stun instead. And we'll see how that plays in game, obviously, when you get on PTS and when she's released. And we can even go ahead and start right off with her primary fire in this form, Caustic Spray. Yagorath will spray acid from her maw. Hitting the ground leaves an acid pool behind. You can have a maximum of 6 pools placed.
Oh, yes.
And this is a fantastic. This is one of my favorite abilities because it provides a lot of pressure, especially really, really close. And the idea of spraying around you and creating these kind of like "don't step in me" pools is really, really interesting for me. Adonis, have you had a chance to play with this as a way of like zoning, or do you just like melting people?
Both, honestly. Like, it could be a really powerful tool for melting and dropping it on damage players, but also just the range that it can go, along with the amount of pulls you can make. There's a small, slow, nothing too bad on it, where you're going to be sluggish and stuck in it for quite some time. But for a frontline champion, it has multiple uses, both as helping secure and lock down an individual player, but also as just this kind of space control without directly affecting the space by creating geometry like some of our other front lines, thinking of Inara do. It creates this area and fields that players really have to think about how they play, whether they want to stay in this and take some damage, or if they just want to get off. It's especially potent versus other front lines on the point.
It just provides that constant pressure and definitely that space that maybe they don't want to stand in, for sure. Complementing this acid spray, though, we actually have the alt fire, which is Piercing Quills, or Piercing Quill. So Yagorath, at a longer range than the acid spray can do, we'll shoot out this quill that will deal damage. It pierces enemies and deals damage on hit, and then will also explode a short duration after it hits geometry or max range. The nice thing about this is it complements the acid. If you are affected by the acid pool while you are hit by the Piercing Quill, that target will take increased damage from all sources, not very much, for a short duration. So this is your tool. Like, if you really want to get just a little bit of help for the rest of your team, is put that acid down, hit them with the quill, and suddenly they are taking more damage from everyone. And they need to be aware of, do they want to challenge Yagorath on point? Do they want to challenge Yagorath for this space kind of thing?
Yeah, her basic 2 abilities, her primary fire and alt fire, they feel very monster-like. They interplay within each other. And it allows you to engage players at both short range with the acid and also long range with the quills, since the acid will not go across the map like some of our other primary fires do.
And moving on to kind of her defensive capabilities, she is rather beefy. She has that base damage reduction. She has, a decent amount of health at base, but she also has hardening, which will allow her to hunker down for short duration, increasing the base damage reduction she has. And after this ability, oh my gosh, I absolutely love the visuals on that. creating this zone of essentially you don't want to be standing next to her, because after this ability ends, she will deal damage to enemies around her. That damage will scale based on how long you held it down. This ability is cancelable early. So this is kind of her primary tool to, I can't be very mobile right now, but I don't want to take a lot of damage, especially if they're just hammering on me. So I'm going to hunker down and reduce some of that damage.
Yeah, I think thematically this is, it was a really fun way for us to handle making a frontline even tankier. Obviously, she has the base damage reduction to help with that. But it didn't really make sense for us for this character to create shields like a lot of our other frontlines do, or generate a wall. So we really tried to figure out, how do we make this, how do we give this champion a really strong defensive tool without her creating a shield that doesn't really make sense for her as a character. So we came up with Harden, right? She hunkers down, like you said, gets that really hardened carapace. We think it just plays more into, playing as a giant worm monster, right? You're spraying acid, you're firing quills from your mouth, you're, hunkering down and getting this hardened carapace to get defensive. It, I think, is a really fun way to handle this champion. And then sorry, go on.
I'm just going to say I also encourage people to check out the cards on the patch notes and in-game, as there are some really interesting, I think, in my opinion at least, interactions with hardening in particular with our cards that you don't often see with other champions cards.
Mm-hmm. And players have probably noticed that we have not moved around with this champion, probably because she cannot move while she is standing up or leaning up. She's not really, is it standing if you have no legs?
Unfurled? Can we say that?
Unfurled. Yeah, unfurled. That works.
She just looks wiggly.
She wiggles. She kind of wiggles, but she cannot wiggle, away from the point she's on. But one of our abilities is form swap. Yagorath will swap forms from planted into her mobile form. There she is, the Wheel of Doom.
I haven't heard that yet. Now I'm just going to call this the Wheel of Doom.
The Doom Wheel.
This is, again, we wanted to do a new way to experience a champion in our game. So while planted, you can't move. You're this big hulking monster, but you are very susceptible to enemy players and damage because of your size and the lack of movement you have.
Move over, Skaven. We have a new Doom Wheel here. As you see, as you swap forms, there are different abilities that you will be able to use while in the mobile form versus the planted form. Her first ability in the mobile form, her main, is a trail of acid. She will leave some of those acid pools that we mentioned earlier behind her as she rolls around. And this is kind of a fire and forget. It can be used while other things are being used as well. So if you know you're going to kind of want to create that space, or as you're bowling through people, you just leave that little bit of extra space control, a little bit of extra CC down, and make them think twice about whether or not they want to be there.
Yeah. This, oh God. I'm just so proud of what we've done with this champion. I'm so excited. The wheel, the movement's a lot of fun. For this ability, like you said, it's just basically a fire and forget. It just adds more space control to her as a frontline, really disrupting players and making them move around the map instead of just staying down in one place.
For me, I think, as you said, I'm also very proud of our team. I think this is one of the most technically ambitious champions that we've done. But as we move on to the second ability in our planted form, so while you're putting down that trail of acid, you can also use your alt fire, which is acceleration. Now, this will cause you to go very fast.
Rolling around at the speed of sound.
Deja vu.
Rolling.
So Yagorath cannot mount, right? I think she would probably break the poor horse's back. No. Instead, we have another way for her to gain a little bit of mobility, and as a fun side note, we can go bowling. Nico, my cousin. So as you saw there, we're bowling some poor Cassies. If you are using acceleration, which will allow you to accelerate to a speed that is faster than your base speed, while you maintain that faster than normal base speed and you hit somebody, you will go through them. knocking them up and away and dealing damage to them. So you can roll through kind of a hit and run through the enemy team, which is a lot of fun when combined with the Trail of Acid.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most fun I have with this champion. I mean, there's a lot going on, and her whole kit's enjoyable, but really going very fast as almost a tire wheel, knocking through players and then planting right after that, and then laying waste to them is probably the most enjoyable. Her movement speed can get up there too, so she is a very, very mobile frontline, but obviously incredibly susceptible to damage while she is planted. So you're not really killing players in this form. There's not a ton of damage. It's more utility and ways for you to disrupt enemies.
Of course, I will be saying "meow" as I zip through the enemy team, do that hit and run, come around from behind for the flank. But we'll see our last ability here, which is another kind of a utile ability. She will kind of sense her enemies, and this is kind of an interesting take on a reveal. It's essentially a heartbeat sensor, heartbeat pulse. Yagorath will send out a series of very short series of pulses that will very briefly reveal enemies to her and her team as a means of being useful to her team while she is in mobile form, and kind of providing that hunter killer, that predatory instinct aspect.
I love the little skittering from the bugs. This is probably my favorite ability audio-wise. Actually, I lied. The ult is my favorite ability audio-wise, which I think we are going to take a look here in a second.
An ultimate, you say?
You gotta hope that they take the bait, one might say, right?
Yeah, I hear skittering.
Worm out on the hook.
What's that over there? Yeah. This is one worm you do not want to bite as a fish, because it will eat you instead. So her ultimate. Her ultimate is, I think, one of the most interesting things about her. So we can go ahead and show it off here, but I'll talk as we show it off. But she will swap to a separate health pool as she connects with an enemy with her ultimate, pulling them in. Now, the interesting thing here is that while you are being pulled in, as you are being devoured, oh my gosh, yes, as you are devoured, Cassie can shoot your in-hand at Yagorath. If you did see that health pool swap, you will notice that she has a different amount of health that is separate from her base health, and not only can that Cassie shoot at you, but the rest of her team can shoot at you as well. So while Cassie's being eaten, the rest of her team is also shooting at you. If your health is broken, the ult will break. You will be refunded some ult charge, and you will have a brief moment of vulnerability as you just had your ult broken. But soon enough, you'll be back ready to go. So part of what we wanted to do with this one, I think, is provide these moments of almost like a raid boss, or almost like a brief kind of monstrous, like boss moment where you have to, like, everyone focus Yagorath, she's eating somebody. We got to burn through her health pool to free our teammate.
Yeah, the raid boss mentality for this entire champion is really influenced her design. Is how do we make you feel like you are a boss in a multiplayer PvP game, while also obviously making it balanced? And we think this ultimate specifically is her really big moment of power. In the live version, she will not be continuously playing her audio on loop. Unfortunately, for this patch note show, we are still finishing some polish up on her. But the fact that not only can the enemy player fight back, but it also allows the entire enemy team to fight back and make her, stop her mechanic as if you are fighting a raid boss, we think is a really interesting way to engage with a single champion as an entire team. Obviously, this can be really powerful, but there is enough of a delay that as long as, generally one other person helps assist, you will break that shield. And then once that happens, there will actually be a short delay from Yagorath where she will be vulnerable for about a second or two before she can actually do any abilities again.
And speaking of, raid boss mechanics, I think that is the most fun I ever have getting ulted by the enemy team, is getting eaten by a Yagorath. I love the visuals that we have getting pulled in and kind of this like, oh crap, I got to break this ult, like somebody help me please moment that we see.
And do we want to talk about talents as well here?
Yeah, we can go through them very briefly. So her default talent is Corrosive Acid. Essentially, it will augment her base acid, increasing the damage a little bit, increasing of both the spray and the pools. And then the other cool thing it does is it will increase the movement speed of your allies while they are in your acid. So you can you can be in the front lines, lay down that trail of acid behind you, and see your team kind of speed forward to victory. Her second talent is Sight Begets Strength. So this is modifying her movement ability, Heartbeat Pulse. Allies within range of that Heartbeat Pulse gain a stackable health shield and a brief movement speed increase for a brief duration after they're hit by that pulse. So that's if you really want to be a mobile frontliner, if you really want to get some utility for your team's survivability and some movement speed, you can kind of modify that vision ability. And then her third talent is called Unnatural Persistence. This one is kind of interesting. I'm excited to see how players end up using it. So Yagorath will heal while on an objective, and for 1 second after, or for a short duration after leaving the objective. This effect will scale up the longer you stay on the objective, up to a certain point. And obviously we have that short duration grace period after you leave the objective. This will not affect modes without an objective, but it will affect both the point and payload and cost and all that good stuff. So this one's interesting. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I mean, this really is the most ambitious champion that you folks have created as a whole already. And just real quick before we move on, because we got some skins to go through and we got a little bit more before we get to the design section. But that's pretty much Yagorath. We're going to listen to some of her voice lines, and then we're going to do the shout outs and move on, folks. So let's hear them.
I find your lack of limbs disturbing. A proper send-off for the round. Let them escape. Luck has nothing to do with this. The end is near. Rejoice. Pay that no mind. I am the end.
Ooh.
Wow,
yes.
that one's great. Great writing on that.
No more. We got to end on that one.